Jumpy was a tiny bird with a big heart, and from the moment she hatched, she had one goal: to fly. But there was something that made her different from her siblings. Jumpy was the first to hatch, yet the last to grow her feathers. Every day she would sit on the edge of her nest, flapping her tiny wings and jumping off with all her might, even though she had no feathers to help her soar. She would fall to the soft bedding below, determined to jump higher the next time. Her siblings, who were already gaining their feathers, would watch her curiously from the nest. "Why do you keep jumping, Jumpy?" they would ask, not quite understanding her need. But Jumpy didn't care about the falls or the stairs. She knew that one day her perseverance would lead her to flight. She would not stop until she could fly alongside the others. But then came the storm. One fateful day, the wind howled through the cage, and the rain came pouring down in torrents. Jumpy, as she always did, took her leap from the nest. But this time, the wind was too strong, and she was thrown off course. She fell hard into the water that had pooled at the bottom of the cage. Her small body was soaked, and the current in the water was too strong for her to fight. She struggled to stay afloat, but her little wings, still featherless and weak, couldn't lift her. The cold water drained her strength, and she thought she might not make it. But Jumpy didn't give up. With one final, desperate flap, she pulled herself out of the water, shivering and exhausted. The fall had taken a toll on her, but her spirit was stronger than ever. Even as she grew tired, she knew that one day she would be ready to fly. She just had to keep going. Days passed, and slowly, Jumpy's feathers began to grow in. Though it took longer than it did for her siblings, Jumpy's wings finally began to take shape, and she could feel the wind against her feathers for the first time. But by then, her siblings had already begun to stretch their wings and were getting ready to take their first flights. Jumpy watched them with pride. She had worked so hard to get here, and now she would make sure they didn't have to struggle the way she had. She fed them, guided them, and helped them build their confidence. As they prepared to take their first flight, Jumpy was there, encouraging them every step of the way. And when the day came for them to fly, Jumpy led the way, showing her siblings the right way to flap their wings, how to glide in the wind, and how to land gently on the branches of their cage. She was their protector, their guide, and their teacher. She watched them soar with a heart full of pride, knowing that her sacrifice had given them the strength to fly. But then disaster struck. One day, as the birds were practicing their flights outside of the cage, a wild cat appeared from the bushes. It was swift and fierce, its eyes fixed on the young birds. In that moment, Jumpy knew she had to protect them. She stood between the cat and her siblings, her wings spread wide, blocking their path. The cat lunged, its claws sinking into Jumpy's side. Jumpy screamed in pain, but she didn't move. She kept herself between the cat and the younger birds, making sure they had time to escape. Her siblings flew to safety, but Jumpy was gravely wounded. As the cat retreated, Jumpy collapsed, her body weak from the injury. In her final moments, Jumpy saw her siblings perched safely on the highest branch of their cage, wings spread, ready to soar. She smiled, knowing she had done everything she could for them. Her spirit soared with pride, even as her body lay still. Jumpy had given everything for her family, her dreams, her struggles, her life. And in the end, she was their hero. She had not only learned to fly, but had taught others to do so as well. And though she was gone, Jumpy's legacy lived on in the birds she had helped grow. Every time they took flight, they remembered the brave bird who had shown them that courage, love, and sacrifice were the wings that truly carried them to greatness.